like growing up in San Benito with your mother, a classically trained musician? That must have been incredible.
It was. She was singing in the house along with Gallikerchi pretty often, and it was a musical house. My dad could harmonize with her on some of the more contemporary songs, but yeah, it was great. But we did everything. It was the Great Depression. I was born in 1931, and no one had much of anything, and then right into World War II with rationing and so on. So we pretty well stayed hitched. As I grew and had the opportunity to go to some all-state bands and go to some musical competitions for high school students, I connected with more and more people from some of the larger schools, and that was another bonus and advantage to me. And then my former band director came back to San Antonio, and after the war, and that would have been 45 or 46. And so now I had a connection. My then current band director, who had just gotten out of the Army as well, recognized the value of the relationship between the three of us. So with the help of the San Antonio former band director and current band director, am I confusing you adequately?
No,
Rabbi?
Not at all.
They were able to expose me to more, in a broader view of music.
Now,
And
Paul,
also go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Well, and also we had a really fine big band in Matamoros across the river in Mexico that we were able in those days to drive to as easily as we could to Arlington or Brownsville and listen and sit in and so on. So I had that benefit as well.
Now, I think that you're a man who is sort of possessed in many worlds, which is really great. You went to go study engineering in Texas A&M, and you also took some music classes at a place that is dear in my heart, University of Colorado.
Yes.
So
yes, I did.
So what was that? What is it like? Is it somebody who also likes to sort of hold worlds together? What was it like to hold the engineering world and the music world together? And how did you find your way forward in excelling in both of them?
Let me fast forward and then I'll back into that. Around 1996, I suppose, I got a blind call from someone at A&M that I didn't know, asked me if he and the dean of civil engineering could come over and talk to me. Of course, come and talk. So we sat, and the question ultimately came up. The real reason that we're here is that we are concerned that we're developing tunnel vision, left brain engineers, that our curriculum is so science oriented that there's no room for the broader deal. Can you give us any insight as to how what might have helped you to become more entrepreneurial, broader in your thinking, in their words, to work outside of the box of engineering and excel in the engineering field? I'd have to have some time to think about that. So I did, and it came to me a few days later that it was the music, that it was the exercise of the right brain, So I got back and told them that's what I thought. So what can we do to do that? And it has to be extracurricular. So, at that point, I realized now I can back up, is that I was just in a household, the only child in the Depression era, with an artistic mother and a scientific father, if you will, who appreciated each other's position or so on. So that I'm a big advocate of both. I think our educators, when we have the opportunity to do both, I think that doesn't fit everyone. Don't misunderstand me. I mean, there are many people that need to be focused in the science, and of course, our music educators and the performers and so on, they have to put everything they have into the artistic side. That's who they are. But for those in the middle that have that talent and want to use it, want to play, our advocacy is both.
So did you think that that's what you were going to do? I know you were moving back and forth between civil engineering and music. What was it like to tour when you were a young man? Did you see that as a life for yourself?
No, that's another interesting question. I loved it. There's no bigger thrill, well, maybe one or two, but than standing in front of a big band with a brass behind you and free, to play. I mean, it's just wonderful. And it's such a big thrill to hear or feel a response from the audience for something that you're doing. And to play with great musicians is just absolutely wonderful. But there was never a time that I wasn't ready to come off the road, after a month or two or however long on the road it might be. I learned something from that road life wasn't for me. It got boring, if you will. The routine of playing the same song. I was criticized by an audience member for not playing exactly the same solo that I'd improvised the night before or something, so before, for whatever reason, no, the life on the road didn't appeal to me there. And I got a blind call. I hadn't really played in 2.5 years. And he said he was putting together a band. He wanted me to play lead alto. And I said, I'm pretty well past that. I haven't played in a while. And he said, I'm told you're the only person that can do it, can play this book. Well, that'll hook you pretty good. So I got the horns out and went to work and put together a pretty good territory band.
This is the Dick Hurlburt band, correct?
Yes, Dick Hurlburt, yes.
So you were working in the construction world and also putting together a territory band.
Yes.
Wow, that's really incredible.
Yes, it was, and it did clearly become too much, but it took care of itself with rock and roll coming along. Big bands started losing their allure for a number of reasons. Hire 10, 12, 15 people when you can put 3 or 4 on the stage with guitars. No real call for horns, and so that's slow. And dancing, people started slowing down on the dancing. And another thing, the South Texas, at least, big parts of Texas were dry at that time, so there were a lot of private clubs, and we called them dance clubs, and they were. And just in Harlingen alone, there were 3. So, and each of them would have a dance every month. And the Air Base was still active, the Officers Club, the NCO Club. There were a lot of opportunities, but all of those things faded away. And by 62, 63, early 60s, there was no more market for a big band. And for that matter, for horns, really. It was all guitars.
I was going to ask you about Tony Campisi. I know you first met him in Houston. Tell me about your friendship with Tony.
In his words, it became a brotherhood. I think that probably he loved Betty better than me, and who wouldn't? And she him as well. I had heard Tony before the Kenton era, and admired his work. And I was still active. That was back in the early '70s, when I was working with the high school bands, the high school band was, and we became acquaintances, and then I followed him on the Kenton band, and when he came back to Austin, well, it was just a bonanza. Hey, I'm out here and you're there, and we just began to hang together, and it was so sweet, because when Tony would spend days working on the baritone sax, because, as you know or may not know, he was a master of every wind instrument, 3 flutes and a piccolo, and all the saxophones and clarinets that exist. He would call and say, "Hey, Paul, man, I've been working on my baritone chops, and I want to see if you think I sound like Jerry Mulligan. Can I come out? Come on out." And we just, I don't know, we just developed a friendship, and his words of brotherhood. You mentioned 10. Let me say one more thing about an 11th, and that would be Tony.
Sure.
I think this is worth quoting, but Tony had a bit of an issue with his parents about his music. As you know, I'm sure most, or not most, well, a lot of musicians whose parents aren't musicians themselves, let's say, have. But this is, I'm getting to an actual quote from Tony, but his dad was kind of reprimanding him about, Tony, you just need to get, a real job, let's say. And, you have to quit this or whatever. But Tony's quote, I had to tell my father at that time that God gave me this gift. I would be disrespectful not to use it. So I think that's, there's a quote from the 11th of your Hall of Famers that is, very, very significant, because if you have the gift, you really do need to exercise it and use it. Now, as a primary career, as a secondary, as whatever, but don't give it up. Don't lose it. Don't. Whatever it takes to keep it active, and I think, part of what this Austin Jazz Society is about is educating and illuminating and promoting and exposing musicians to the opportunity to perform, and an audience with an opportunity to learn and grow. And
very well said, Paul.